That's some video that was shown to the jury today. Kyle Rittenhouse walking through the streets of Kenosha screaming, "Does anyone need any medical?" And he's got his gun and his gloves. All right, folks. There are 3 people who were shot that night. I want to show you the picture so you understand. 2 of them lost their lives. Gage Grosskreutz survived. He got shot in the arm. Anthony Huber did not survive. He was the young man who had the skateboard. And Joseph Rosenbaum is the one that we've been talking about. Martin Howard, the detective today, also had some video relative to the shooting and death of Anthony Huber. So let's take a look at that part of what happened today.
Detective Howard, can you help us, or help the jury rather, where is this video physically at in Kenosha as we're watching it right now?
So at this point in time, Kyle Cook is the videographer, and he's a little bit north of the car source. I'd estimate he's about here.
You're pointing on the west side of Sheridan Road between the 61st Street and 62nd Street?
Yes.
Okay, and he's heading south?
Yes, his camera right now is pointing southbound.
Okay, thank you.
So there was just like 6 shots. This went off.
Represent to the jury, and there's no dispute about this. What we're seeing in this video in the middle of the street is the defendant, and on his left is Gage Grosskreutz. We can continue.
Stop here! Stop here! Stop here! Stop here! He shot him! He shot him! Who shot him?
Shit's about to turn up here. Damn, dude, we got people shot everywhere, bro. We got somebody down right.
Detective Howard, at the moment that this video is paused, there appear to be some figures huddled around a dark spot on the ground on the east side of Sheridan Road. Do you know what that is?
I believe that's Mr. Huber.
That is where he fell after being shot by the defendant?
Yes.
Want to bring back in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter, still with us in Kenosha tonight. Chanley, we've been watching all these videos, and it's tough to get some perspective. Can you put together for us, from what we've heard so far and what we've learned, Kyle Rittenhouse's movements that night?
Absolutely. I'm glad that you brought this up because it is unclear seeing all these pieces of video, but to have his route or his path that evening. So we put together this graphic to give a visual of it. And it starts, of course, at the car source #2 location where he was there to, as he said, to protect that business that night. That's on the southwest corner of 59th and Sheridan Road, where I'm really almost sitting right now. That's his initial location. And then he moved with his buddy that we heard about today in court down to the car source #3 location. That's the northwest corner of 63rd and Sheridan. And that is the location where Joseph Rosenbaum was killed. Then we see the videos, and that moves to the intersection of 61st and Sheridan. That's the middle of the road, and that's where, well, you showed the shooting of Anthony Huber and Gage Grosskreutz injured there. Then Kyle Rittenhouse moved to the intersection of 60th and Sheridan. That's that where he's holding his arms up. He attempts to surrender to the police. They have that line, that police line of vehicles there. They tell him to back away. After they back away. He returns to that original location because the police line then is moving out of the way. We see that in that viral video. He returns back to car source number 2, again, 59th Sheridan Road, the original location where him and his friend Dominic Black, who testified yesterday, go back to Illinois, Vinny. But that's the path of his travel throughout the night of the incidents in those key locations.
Okay, bring back in the think tank as we look at the movements of Kyle Rittenhouse, and we see the second shooting of Anthony Huber and Gage Grosskreutz as well. Nima, I want to ask you about Grosskreutz because he approaches Rittenhouse and is interviewing him, and that video is going to end up in front of this jury as well. They saw a piece of it during the defense opening. The fact that Grosskreutz approaches him first and then approaches him a second time, does that help one side or the other? The fact that before the shooting of Anthony Huber, he's interviewing him on that video.
Well, it's a little bit helpful for the prosecution, but I know the defense loves those two victims more. And obviously, these are people who have lost their lives. But there's a reason that the prosecution is focused on Rosenbaum. That's a much better case, a much weaker self-defense argument. And as we move on to the other victims and Rittenhouse being chased, that's a much better self-defense argument. So that's why the defense is focused on those two individuals and not Rosenbaum.
You know, Kirk, I think an argument that we've heard already in opening statements, even though it's supposed to be just opening statements, not opening arguments, from the defense is going to be that the only people that were shot by Kyle Rittenhouse were people who made aggressive moves towards him, people who went for his gun, people who grabbed his gun, and Gage Grosskreutz, who pointed a gun at Kyle Rittenhouse while he's grabbing Kyle Rittenhouse's gun. Anthony Huber, who was attempting to take the gun away from Kyle Rittenhouse. Everybody else in that video that we saw, that entire mob that was chasing him down, no one else was shot. So how do prosecutors deal with that fact?
It still doesn't show that he was in fear for his life, Vinny. I mean, I think ultimately in the end, and we've heard harbingers of this in the statements, opening arguments, whatever you want to call them, that Mr. Rittenhouse is going to have to go in there and say he feared for his life. But I think this helps the prosecution a great deal because what does Mr. Rittenhouse do? After shooting someone, he doesn't try to render aid. He's claiming to be an EMT. He doesn't try to render aid. He doesn't do anything
Kirk,
else.
let me let you react to what the defense is going to say. They're going to say at that point, people in the crowd were yelling, and one of them was Zeminski, the one who fired the gun, yelling, shoot him, about Kyle Rittenhouse. I mean, that's what they said in an opening statement.
Right. He ran back into the crowd. He was looking for more. He was still in this vigilante mindset. He runs back into the crowd. He puts himself in danger. And what are people in that crowd supposed to think? You now have a man with an AR-15, a scope, and a strap on it running through the street who's already shot someone. I think it's reasonable for those people to believe that Mr. Rittenhouse was an active shooter and looking to do more. I mean, we think about all these shootings in theaters and malls and everything else where no one does something. The argument always is, well, if someone had a gun, it would have put a stop to it. That's exactly what we heard these people in this crowd say. And so I don't think that argument, if the defense chooses to make it, is really going to hold sway.
All right.